Good evening and welcome to another episode of An Introduction to A Course in Miracles. I am back and I've got the book, and of course the book is central to the transformation that we are all seeking to get out of the world of blockage and frustration and limitation and all of the other things that seem to propel this world forward with such wild abandon. So, as we are continuing this journey with A Course in Miracles, the last few weeks we've been looking at basically a workbook lesson first and then going over to the text and doing a little bit of exploration of the original content of the course that was dictated by Jesus to Helen Schuckman. And talk about a wild and crazy ride. I think Helen really got herself into something much more than she had ever anticipated in this lifetime. Imagine having a voice show up that is not really in your head, but is very pervasive, that comes through from a depth of a place that you normally don't recognize, that you normally are not aware of. And if you go to my website, themiraclewithin.org, you will find on the landing page a brief discussion by Helen about the voice and how it appeared, and how it transformed her life and William Thetford's life and the lives of literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world. So, in celebration of A Course in Miracles and in celebration of spring and in celebration of life, we'll launch today's discussion by looking at a very valuable lesson in the workbook, and that is lesson 140. And this one takes us kind of off on a tangent that a lot of course people are kind of ambiguous about. They don't really know how to approach dialogue about the fact that if you follow the instructions in A Course in Miracles, in the workbook, you will experience physical healing. Whatever your ailment is, whatever it is that is causing you grief or frustration or a sense of blockage, by working toward the atonement and actually experiencing the atonement, the things that are problematic in your life will be healed. And I've seen this in my own life. I've seen it in literally dozens of other people's lives. So it is not pie in the sky kind of philosophy. It is a workable and very accessible way to optimize your life, to get rid of the body's ills, and to get rid of the other ills in your life, whether it be the pocketbook or friendships, relationships, whatever. It, across the board, will manifest in a curative fashion. And the important thing is to not have the expectation of a specific thing. I mean, you can work on specific things in your meditation and that sort of thing, but to be open, because healings are layered. They come in, in this process of one thing built upon top of another, of another, of another. So sometimes the root cause of your issue is coming from a place that you don't even recognize. So again, it's a process of patience, faith, and integrity. You have to be honest with yourself about what it is that you're really looking for in life. So starting off with lesson 140, says only salvation can be said to cure. Cure is a word that cannot be applied to any remedy the world accepts as beneficial. So that's kind of an interesting thought. Right off the bat here, we're eliminating vaccines and penicillin and, chemotherapy and everything else. What the world perceives as therapeutic is but what will make the body better. When it tries to heal the mind, it sees no separation from the body, where it thinks the mind exists. So we've dumbed ourselves down to the point here where we're listening to our ego, and the part of the mind that the ego is occupying is absolutely convinced that that lump of flesh inside your skull is the center of your thinking. And of course, as you start to delve into a spiritual practice, you undoubtedly at some point come to the realization that the brain is merely a chunk of flesh that acts like a conduit. But the truth is, your mind is universal. It is a part of God's mind, and it is non-corporeal. It is not a physical phenomenon. So it goes on to say, its forms of healing thus must substitute illusion for illusion. So you're trying to heal the brain, not realizing that the mind, which is where the real problem exists, is not contained in the body. So in order to heal the body, we come into a very interesting paradoxical situation. In order for the body to be reclaimed, regenerated, healed, you have to get to that point where you have completely and totally let go of the body. And the way that that occurs is when we go into our meditative state, we can calm the mind to the point where it eventually stops thought, all thought. And when you can attain that plateau of awareness, where thought comes to a point of cessation, you suddenly have this breakthrough experience. You realize your true self, that you are not a physical body, you are not a corporeal being, you are something indefinable, indescribable, and immaculate. That's the beauty of it. Your perfection is revealed to you. As you understand your perfection as a spiritual being, it has the secondary effect of healing the body. So in order for the body to truly be healed, the mind is where the work has to be done. One belief in sickness takes another form, and so the patient now perceives himself as well. He is not healed. He merely had a dream that he was sick, and in the dream, he found a magic formula to make him well. Remember Jack and his magic beans and all the calamity that was created with that pursuit? That's pretty much what the pursuit of physical healing will ultimately result in. Yet he has not awakened from the dream, and so his mind remains exactly as it was before. He has not seen the light that would awaken him and end the dream. What difference does the content of a dream make in reality? One either sleeps or wakens. There is nothing in between. So in this adventure that we're on, in order to resolve all of our physical problems, all of our imagined problems, the only avenue out is the ultimate exit, where in that process of stopping the constant brain chatter, of bringing the mind to a point of stillness, you will have that flash And I mean, literally, there will be a flash of light. You're sitting there with your eyes closed, you're working your way down, you're completely relaxed. And then you step into that space where you have never entered before. And within that space, an entirely different reality opens up to you. And this can happen in literally a millisecond. You know, we work for our daily bread by going to that place where we cease the thinking process. And in that moment of atonement, we are restored in totality to our oneness with God. And within that process, magic is eliminated and truth comes to the surface. Magic is a process of trying to find potents and formulas and all these other things to correct our physical experience. And none of that is going to work. It's just replacing one problem with a different circumstance that ultimately will replenish itself in a different format. So you're chasing the carrot. You know, you're the guy sitting there in the carriage holding that stick out with a carrot dangling in front of the horse, and the horse is going to go wherever that carrot dangles. So you're really creating an opportunity to frustrate yourself, not just in this lifetime, but in multiple lifetimes. So it goes on to say, yet he has not awakened from the dream, and so his mind remains exactly as it was before. He has not seen the light that would awaken him and end the dream. What difference does the content of the dream make in reality? One either sleeps or wakens. There is nothing in between. The happy dreams the Holy Spirit brings are different from the dreaming of the world, where one can merely dream he is awake. The dream's forgiveness lets the mind perceive, do not induce another form of sleep. So in this journey, in this process, there is an act of forgiveness that occurs. When we bring ourselves to that point of stillness, we discover that God not only has forgiven us, but had never condemned us to begin with. That we are God's perfect creation. We have never ceased to be with God. And that this absurd circumstance that we find ourselves in is the compounded illusion. And the illusion just gets worse and worse and worse. It builds upon one screw up after another screw up after another screw up, and we carry guilt over multiple cycles of birth and death. And the only way to resolve the guilt is to work toward the atonement, to work toward that holy instant, and to forgive everybody else around us. You can't receive forgiveness unless you're willing to extend forgiveness. And that forgiveness has a curative power that is astonishing. So if you're into the idea of curing with cannabis or curing with, you know, lemon rind or whatever, your herbs and your various compounds, all of those are simply a balm placed over a wound, and you're not actually examining the wound and bringing it into the light so it can be healed. So really, that whole idea of curing the body and curing our circumstances in this material world are ultimately always at their core related to, number one, the acceptance of the atonement, the willingness to step back into that silence where life actually flips and you discover who you actually are. And to extend every gift that you bring back from that experience into the world that you are surrounded by. And the top priority is the act of forgiveness. So you have to be able to look at these kids who are going into schools and murdering 10 or 12 or 15 other people, and be able to see past the horrors of what your senses are telling you are real, and to be able to look into the well of forgiveness and bring that bucket up and share that with everybody and every circumstance. Doesn't matter who it is or what they've done. The only thing that will work on your behalf is to not feel that inflammation and that desire for revenge and that desire to attack them. The only thing that will work is to let it go and realize you're witnessing a dream. If that dream you had last night, where, you know, half a dozen people got murdered in the dream, and your next door neighbor was the one in the dream who murdered those people, you certainly wouldn't go next door and, you know, dish out a little justice by the world's standards by shooting your neighbor. That would be pretty crazy. Well, when you're in that state of awakenedness, that's exactly what you understand. That's exactly what you perceive, and that's exactly how you respond to life. You realize, as hideous as everything appears, and all the suffering and all the ignominy and all the frustration and all the horrors of this world have to be recognized for what they are. And once you do that, you're beginning to heal the world by forgiving it, by letting go of it, by not reinforcing the madness of it. Atonement heals with certainty and cures all sickness. For the mind, which understands that sickness can be nothing but a dream, is not deceived by forms the dream may take. So that's a very lucid reiteration of what I was just talking about. Once you realize that all of this is a dream, then that gives you permission to transcend it, not to stay stuck in it, not to resist it, not to try to correct it, but to see with absolute certainty that it's not real. That's a hard, that's a hard task. I mean, I'm not going to dialogue with a bunch of fluff about how all of this holier than thou stuff works. The truth is, it is tough. It is a journey where you are constantly confronting your own ego, because your ego lives on that ledge of reality where justice is perceived as being revenge, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And as Jesus said in that final moment when he's on the cross, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." So, the example was established by a man 2,000 years ago who uttered those words in an act of total forgiveness. And he was the one who was being crucified. So how hard is it for you to act on that level of forgiveness when you're living in the lap of luxury? You've got food on your plate, you've got a roof over your head, you've got people you love. So you're not being spiked on a hill in the Middle East and abandoned by all the people that were a part of your life. And that was what happened for a brief period of time there. We have to be realistic. So you don't have to get crucified, but you do have to stop crucifying others in order to walk the path that Jesus illuminated for us. It goes on to say, "Sickness where guilt is absent cannot come, for it is but another form of guilt." So any sickness, any physical problems you have resides within the mind, and it is a circumstance of guilt. You have condemned yourself for something that you did at some point in the past, and you've held on to that guilt. And the harder you hold on to that guilt, the more likely you are to be accusative of those around you. So if you're condemning others, then watch out what's going on, because you're reinforcing your own guilt. There is no other way that this can possibly work. This is the way that a healed and rational mind perceives reality. It perceives reality as being guiltless itself and extending that guiltlessness to everyone it encounters. Atonement does not heal the sick, for that is not a cure. It takes away the guilt that makes the sickness possible. And that is cure indeed, for sickness now is gone, with nothing left to which it can return. Now that's, kind of a astonishing lesson for us, and it really gives us the answers that we've been looking for, in the sense of trying to rectify the problems in our lives. And additionally, for those of us who have a level of compassion, to trying to rectify the circumstances in other people's lives where there is dysfunction and misery and loss and all of the shadow things that this earthly realm presents to us. So anyway, that is a very potent discussion, I would hope, for you. I know it is for me. I love doing these simply because I reinforce all of these things that I believe, that I have studied, and that I practice. So while it seems that I'm showing up here to teach others, the reality is I am reinforcing the teachings for myself. And that's, again, how any profound teaching works, is as we share this understanding, it heals us as well as those around us. So, looking at the text, we've been kind of taking a slow journey through chapter 5, and we were looking at time and eternity the last time. And today, we're going to pick up with a little bit of dialogue about the decision for God. Do you really believe you can make a voice that can drown out God's? So, that's what we've been talking about in the past, the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the voice for God that literally exists within us. Now, at times, it can show up as a sense of, having a conscience. But more profoundly, it is that voice that pulls us back from aggression, attack, from all of the elements that the ego is constantly grinding away at. Somebody gets in your way, you want to push them out of the way. The ego is always angry, it's always frustrated, it's always unhappy, it's always unfulfilled. So, do you think there is a voice from your ego that can bury the voice of God? The voice of God is within you, and the more you learn to listen to it, the more it will speak directly to you. Do you really believe you can devise a thought system that can separate you from Him? Do you really believe you can plan for your safety and joy better than He can? You need be neither careful nor careless. You need merely cast your cares upon Him, because He careth for you. Sounding kind of like the Old Testament, or the New Testament in some ways here. It's got kind of that rhythm of the original translation of the Bible with the careth, etc. You are his care because he loves you. His voice reminds you always that all hope is yours because of his care. You cannot choose to escape his care because that is not his will. But you can choose to accept his care and use the infinite power of his care for all those he created by it. So again, we're getting that idea, that suggestion brought up into clarity that this journey is not about me. As a matter of fact, whenever you're thinking in terms of me, that's the antithesis of reality. Me doesn't even exist. That was an illusion that we've started to break apart and come to recognize. But more importantly, just imagine how profound your life is, because it is integral to the healing of everybody on the world. You know, that photograph of the little kid in Africa that's starving to death, those photographs of the people doing hideous things to dogs in China, all of those horrors that are constantly bombarding us from all directions. Every time we go into this state of quietude and we reach down within ourselves and open ourselves up to the voice for God, to that presence from within, we are actively transforming the world around us. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and find all these things completely missing from your life. But isn't it better to live with the assurance that every day you are doing something to contribute to the transformation of this realm, so that ultimately, as you move forward in time, you will be a force that will diminish all of the nastiness, all of the horrors, all of the ugliness that we have created here in this physical realm. So that really is the only way we're going to accomplish anything. It has to start from the inside, and then it becomes manifest in the world that we are living in. And if you believe, even for a minute, that your life is not significant in the greater play that's going on around you, then you are delusional. Because every individual, everywhere in the planet, and every state of consciousness, everywhere in the cosmos, is a participant. You have a role, you have an impact, you have a voice, you have God's substantiation. God is holding you up in the midst of the storm, and you have to honor yourself and honor God and honor all of life everywhere on the planet. It seems like, you know, that's pretty intense. The truth is that as we learn to surrender to God, it becomes so easy, because we become the conduit. We're no longer trying to fix things. We're no longer trying to generate this or generate that. You know, by Native American imagery, we become, as School's Crow said, we become hollow bones. We are the bones. And the truth, the light, the joy, the love flows through us. It heals us, it transforms us, and it allows us to become a part of a process that is magnificent beyond belief. So, you know, you can stand out in the rainstorm by yourself and hold out and push back and resist. But ultimately, at some point, because you are part of something that is so much greater than your little ego, you will come in out of the rain. You will join in the dance of life. You will become a part of love again, instead of withholding the love from yourself and from those around you. So anyway, That brings us up to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time here in the Chicago region. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. My website for A Course in Miracles is at www.themiraclewithin, it's all one word, .org. And you can find information on the course, information about me, a way of connecting with me if you want to send me an email. And hopefully in 1 week we'll all reconvene for another dialogue about what it means to be healed, and what it means to be a positive force in the world, and what it means to recognize the truth, which is that you are as God created you. Nothing can ever distort, warp, or diminish God's creation. You can have dreams of being, the wicked witch from the West, and you can play with that little ball of absurdity for a lifetime, or 2 lifetimes, or 10 lifetimes. But the truth is, ultimately, we will all awaken and realize the magnificence of every soul that we are surrounded by. So get out there and share the love, pass the love around, have a great week. Communicate if you feel inclined to, and enjoy the extended weekend, because we do have a holiday weekend on the horizon. So I will see you in 7 days, and many blessings to all of you.